What is up to all the difference makers out there? We have another killer episode for you. We have Jim Bunn and Mark Warren in the studio today. And you know what? It's so cool. A couple episodes ago with Brian Bastinelli, he talked about it at the end of the episode. He had said something about a lot of people had given him advice on not to enter a partnership in business and how it never works out. And then in his story, it didn't work out. Things ended up working out for him, of course, but I have a couple of guys in the studio today that say not only can it work out, but they have the details of their partnership, how they've been able to use their differences and understand their differences as humans and come together as one complete team that is out developing a killer real estate team out there that is really making a difference in the area. So Mark and Jim, super excited to have you in the studio. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having us on.
Oh, man, absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Excited.
Absolutely. So, Mark, you were just kind of telling me, you guys, did you guys seek out this advice, or what were you? How did you guys start and meet each other? Kind of tell me that origin of that story.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. When I first got in the business, my whole goal, right, getting into real estate was like, okay, who can I learn from? How can I? My goal was to start my own real estate team, and how quickly can I get it? Who can I learn from to be able to do those things? So I joined one of the top teams in the state, learned a little bit there, some good things, some things not to do, and then went and looked for my next opportunity, which is where I met Mark. And Mark was so busy in the real estate world, crushing it, that it's a bits and pieces that I got a chance to talk with him and pick his brain. And I built a lot of my business off of Mark. Thank you, Mark. It just, the opportunity was there, but I wasn't at a point where I could lead a team yet. I didn't have the knowledge base. I didn't have the understanding of the whole real estate scope. And that's something that Mark, who had at that time, I think you were in the business for 6-7 years, and then done, hundreds of transactions. And we just started talking one day, and it was like, you know what, we can do bigger and better things. And where I accelerated in some things like coaching and leadership and stuff like that, in my knowledge base of understanding real estate and thinking in depth and analytically, is where Mark accelerated. And it just kind of, when we first started, I don't know if we thought it would work, and we were just like, let's go for it. And it all of a sudden exploded. And we grew from, originally 4 of us to 20 of us in a matter of a year and a half, and exploded. So.
Yeah, and I think for me at that time, it was, you saw me running a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you start any industry, you just want to be successful, right? That's all you're focused on, like anything, right? Then you get that success, and then your perspective changes. You're like, that's not all I want, So I was at that point in my life where it was like, I'm either going to quit or scale. That was 2 options. I was looking at like day trading and anything to get me out of running, right? So, I knew what I didn't have, I guess, a little bit of.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to meet Jim and understand what he's got. And it's like, all right, dude, well, I got the nuts and bolts and you got the magnetism, so let's run. And it worked pretty good so far.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's so awesome. That's so cool how you see like the differences, and you guys can be so self-aware to be like, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and you have like this kind of thing to complete the team.
Yeah, I think, we're both entrepreneurs. We both have a goal in mind of what we want to do. My pace is like, I want to be here now, right? Like hurry up and get there. Mark's a lot more reserved and analytical, and we'll be like, hey, we got to watch for this or watch for that, which is great.
Yeah.
And because I got blinders on, and it's been a great and a magical partnership in terms of like understanding, we both want the same thing. And I think that we're in the business for the right reasons. So many other, real estate companies or real estate teams or real estate leaders for that matter are in it for themselves and to make money for themselves. That will come for sure. But Mark and I are building this for our agents and not for us initially, right? And we understand that that at scale, there comes a time where, yes, we're making money. We're not doing this for free, but at the same time, pouring into our agents and having our agents be the ones that are front and center is the goal, right? And people are the goal.
What is that driving force? Why is it the people?
Is there another way to be successful?
To me, no, but no.
It is the people, right? I mean, any business is just people. So it doesn't matter if you're selling widgets or real estate or mortgages or whatever it is. Good people can take you really far. Poor people, and it's typically leadership's fault anyways, right? If you have people operating poorly, it's probably your fault. So we learned that a lot from the beginning too. Hey, why isn't this working? Why isn't this going on? Or
I told them.
Yeah. Extreme ownership, right?
Yeah.
I think that's and I get caught. Mark will point it out a lot is, I'll get frustrated with this situation or that situation or this agent or that agent or whatever it might be. And it all falls back to Mark and I, right? It all truly everything, every sense of the business. And when you can realize that, and when you can take and say, you know what, the performance of my agents is squarely on our shoulders, and how can we make this, to help them? How can we better ourselves to be able to help them achieve their goals and their aspirations? So extreme ownership's huge. And I think that's, one of our greatest, attributes is that, like, it's never our agents or our admins or our employees' faults. It's Mark and I's to be able to help them get to their goal.
In the payoff, what do you see with that culture, with your culture and with your team when you do that?
Oh, it's amazing. We're starting to see already leaders emerge in it, right? And that is so cool when you see, it's nothing we're forcing upon people, right? Or pushing them into doing, but when you see collective help and work and they're working outside of the office together and doing, it's like, man, this is a good culture. It's awesome to keep.
That's what we hire to. I don't know we don't know whether or not this person or that person is going to be good at selling real estate or good at their job. We're hiring to our culture, right? And so, like-minded people, people that are qualities that mesh well. So our hiring process, it's a pretty in-depth hiring process. We usually sit down with them. We have a phone conversation or a phone interview, and then we'll have 2 meetings with Mark and I, both of us. And then at the end, we do a group interview. And in that group interview, there's probably 5, and mixture of our admin or our employees as well as our real estate agents will go out with them, and they get to ask questions and the back and forth to make sure that culture is good. And if the culture is good, if one of them says no, then it's a no. And it's been a testament that we've had excellent people, phenomenal people that enjoy being around each other and helping each other and motivate each other. Real estate, our culture is built around competition. We're very competitive. In fact, I know Mark. I think Mark knew, but for early on when I was in real estate, I was chasing him, and I was chasing him hard. We had a board where we were at, and it was like, okay, Mark's at 6, 7, 8 pending. He was crushing it. I was like, oh, how do I get there? I'm barely doing any, and I had 1 and then 2 and then 3. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there was a couple of times where I was close. And, I never told him. I think he knew, but I always he was that carrot I was chasing. And when I finally got there, it was towards the end, and Mark was on his way out. I think it was hunting season probably.
I took Q4 off.
Yeah. And I finally got there, but that was a big moment. And so we've, I think, part of our culture is competitive nature. So we have a lot of agents that are very competitive. And we play into that. We do competitions and find different ways and strategies to be able to bring that out.
When you talk about hiring for culture, and it's like, how do you know if you have a culture fit? If you have somebody that's not competitive, they're not going to fit in your culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You play sports. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm that way too as a leader. And it's like, I've had people in a culture that are not motivated with that. And in fact, they are repelled by that. And it's like, I used to at the beginning, I would care and I'd try to cater to that person. And it's just realizing that this is not a culture fit. They do not nice person. They might be good somewhere else, but not having that competitiveness. That's what drives us.
We had a couple agents early on that didn't like us posting their numbers. They're like, well, I didn't do anything. I got 0s. And we're like, yep. That's why these are, we're like, guess what? It's going to be announced every single week from here on out. So it's on on the back of our meeting agenda. Here's everybody's numbers. Yeah. And you're going to see 0s, right? I mean, then that's intentional. And every time you walk into our office, we have a TV that's rolling that has everybody's numbers, and it has their year-to-date numbers. It has how many units, how much their volume is, and what their pendings are, and everything. What are their numbers? So you can see you're chasing somebody. It might not be the number one person. It might be somebody that's just ahead of you, and I'm chasing that person, and then you just slowly move up, and that's the goal. That's the whole purpose of it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Again, like nobody wants to come and see that 0 on the board.
Nope. And if you do, then you'll slowly work your way out, right? So I mean, it's. Yeah, and again, I think that's our biggest our culture. When we hire, that's what we're looking for from people.
And it's almost a trick, right? Because our business, and a lot of businesses are similar to where like if you're a 1099 employee, that certain gratification is coming.
Yeah.
Right? So for us, it's a closing. You get that commission check, especially at the beginning, that validates like, okay, my activities, here's the results from it. We're like a 6-month cycle.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So if I meet you today, maybe we do a transaction that closes 6 months from now. When you're starting, that's a long 6 months, right? So if I can this week just beat Jim and it's moving the needle to my goal, it's a win. But a lot of people, it's really hard to decipher that at the beginning. So it's kind of like a dirty little trick to get working,
Yeah. How do you because there's some things that lead into obviously selling, you talk about that 6-month cycle, or do you have that lead measure of what can you be doing in order to move that number and make that sale?
Yeah, we break it down to all the way to days activities, right? Really a daily activity. So, actually, as I was listening to your podcast, everyone has these little nuggets they talk about that someone in the past said to them, right? Or they learned from this coach or that type of person. And Jim always hears me in our interviews talk about the real estate Yoda that helped me. So this is a KW office in Ann Arbor, and I was 20 years old, just young, man, nervous, right? Just nervous to be in the building. This old guy walks up to me and grabs me by the arm and shakes me. He's like, hey, 10 real estate conversations a day is all you need to do. I'm like, what? He's like, that's all you need to do. And he kind of disappeared. Right? And I'm sure that guy never thought about it, right? Never really made a big intention or is this really going to impact that kid?
Yeah.
Right. But that has stuck with me ever since. That was first week. And now we still operate off of it. So it's 10 real estate conversations a day. How you're going to do it, there's a million ways to do it, but that's moving the needle.
And that's for our new, once we're tracking the data, right? If Jason wants to join and be in real estate and you're like, hey, I want to make $100,000. That seems to be everyone's, goal.
Yeah.
I want to make $100,000. Okay, fantastic. Here's all the things. We'll reverse engineer it based off of our team stats to how many conversations you need. Maybe, you're going to convert differently than Mark does. Mark's going to convert differently than I do.
Yeah.
And everybody's is unique. But when we first have a brand new agent, it's 10 conversations. And I think that's the golden rule, right? Is effort in, right? 10 conversations. It's funny. You don't realize when you're in real estate, oh man, 10 conversations is going to lead to this big old paycheck at the end.
Yeah.
But then we'll entice, we'll have these little competitions and it'll be like, hey, here's a $50 gift card for the most conversations for the month. And everybody's dying over this $50 gift card. But, if they actually did the work, it's a $10,000 nugget at the end, Hey, if you do these things, here's this $10,000 gift card, right? Not just a $50 gift card, but that's so hard for people to visualize. It's so hard to effort in here results to this closing here. And it's so far away. And if I can dangle, they can actually conceptually understand a $50 gift card, right? I can be like, hey, at the end of this, if you have the most conversations, I'm giving this to you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we try different strategies and competition based to be able to get there.
You just, because at the end of the day, if they get 10, they're getting 10 consistently, they're going to get those other numbers. It's going to lead to the goal.
Absolutely.
Sure. It's on a percentage basis, right? You go talk to 100 people, someone's doing something. Someone's interested in investing, someone's got a house they got to sell, they've always thought about this or that, or a lot of times it's just you're trying to help.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're really coming from curiosity and helpfulness, that things happen. It's when you're always worried about yourself, man, nothing happens.
Yeah.
And that's when, as far as it came to the team, it's as soon as I stopped worrying about myself, it's wow, these agents are succeeding, right? Or, wow, my clients are working, my clients are busy. So it's amazing how that happens.
It's so simple, yet it's so hard.
It really is.
It's so hard. We have to wake up daily and have to remind ourselves that.
Yeah, serving our agents, serving our community, giving back and doing that, pouring into them and constantly doing it gives results, right? And it's when you talk to people and you treat people the way that they need to be treated, it's gold, right? If I'm calling and all I'm thinking about is I need to get these people to the closing table, or I need to, make money to put ends meet, that's the wrong attitude. It's so hard when you do need all those things, right? When you do need money. But when you just break it down, this is something I've learned from Mark. Mark's phenomenal at it. He's great at listening, right? And it's the number one sales skill that you can have. And so many people that are deep DI personalities, all they want to do is hurry up and get done talking so I can talk, right? Yeah. And I struggle with that. I struggle with the fact of active listening, right? My wife will tell you, it's that's hard to do for a lot of people, is to actively listen. And when you can do that in sales, you win every time. Caring about people is 100%
number one
way to success.
It's number one. I had this guy on my team that was more reserved. He kind of reminds me of you a lot more, in your personality versus you. And there was a guy in his location that was more like you, and they both did great.
Yeah.
But Chris was always like, I don't even know why you have me as a salesperson. I'm the worst salesperson in the world. Like, dude, you're top 5 every year. You're not him, but you listen, and everybody knows that you have integrity. Everybody knows that you're going to give you're going to give the best advice based off of their situation. There's no question. You've earned their respect. They're constantly referring to you. All it takes is listening. It doesn't matter if you're that gregarious personality, which a lot of people think in sales you have to be.
Agree.
So far than the truth, though, right?
Right.
And it's, you always say, okay, I'm different, and that's a negative.
Yeah.
It's not. You're different, and there's perks to being different. And it's, we see it all the time with agents. It's that's a benefit.
Yeah.
But because you're so wrapped up in between your ears, it looks like a negative to you.
Yes.
Right? But we're sitting here on the sidelines going, keep going, right? Or you're doing it. Or, and that's why I like a lot of what we do too. It's we're able to give that 30,000 foot view. Hey, let's look at your production, your activities, and what you've learned. And hey, would the person 6 months ago even be asking me this question today? Right.
Ooh.
And when they are able to step back and think about that, you see it in their face, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm moving the needle, so that's awesome.
I got this visual, you're the parent that's doing the growth chart on the wall, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You're because that's so important because sometimes you get in that tunnel and you're going, you don't look and see that growth. And again, you talk about that long path to a sale, everything counts. That growth is huge.
Well, and it's amazing when you have your brand new agent, right? And they're talking about this thing they're really struggling with. And you relate it to the agent that's doing 25 units a year. And hey, I just had this same conversation with this producer with these same issues.
Yeah.
It's not unique to you, right? But it's the fact you recognize it is such a huge advantage. I mean, how many people in the sales world or business world have these downfalls? They don't even recognize it. It's every time I'm with Jim, he doesn't let me talk. I tried to tell him to list my house, but he just kept talking.
Yeah.
There's all those things we got to get out of our own way.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you use that analogy all the time of including myself, where it's you're climbing that mountain, right? We're all climbing the mountain, and we're all at different various places on that mountain. We never stop to look back behind, see how far we've come, right? All we're doing is focusing up top at that peak, and it's man, it's so far away. But if you turn around and look, you're holy smokes, I've come pretty far, right? Yeah. And I think in real estate specifically, you have to know everything, right? You have to know a little about, houses and the quality and negotiations and contracts and mortgage and title and insurance. And we get asked questions about everything, and it's we just know a little bit about all of them to be dangerous. But we always elect to the experts, right? It's hey, I'm not the best person to talk about what your taxes are going to be, right? Here's a couple of resources for you, or I would call the township, or, hey, I know interest rates have gone up a little bit, but maybe call, your mortgage lender, and they'll be the best one to be able to give you a quote. But, I think that, so many of our agents, it's so hard to be able to visualize, how far they've come. And it's you got to stop and look back behind you to kind of notice, holy smokes, 6 months ago, I didn't even know what a purchase agreement looked like, or I don't even know how to have this conversation with this client. And now you're able to do it easily. And I think that's the goal, is to help them realize, it takes time, and, you're starting up your own business, and it takes time.
That does sound so intimidating, of going through that process. I think of most real estate agents sell to somebody they know. that first time?
Usually.
Yeah.
So you're going through that process, just kind of figuring it out as you go.
In real estate, when you join, there's a couple different ways you can go. You can go on your own, right, and go solo. And man, in a world that you need so much of, right, and so much knowledge, it's so hard to be able to get going in real estate as on your own. And so there was truly a need for a team. And so when we decided to do a team, it's like, okay, we have a listing manager, we have a marketing specialist, we have a contract to close specialist. We have all these pieces that can bog you down in a real estate transaction. And Mark and I's focus now is training the agents, right? Like, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, training and learning, all those things. It allows them to focus and not have to worry about figuring out how to make sure that this paper goes to mortgage and this paper gets to title and the office's compliance is hounding me over this signed document or that sign. All that stuff's taken care of, and it just allows you to be more efficient. So, joining a team, it really accelerates your growth. And that's our goal, is how quickly can we get an agent from day one to their first paycheck? Because in real estate, that's the number one hurdle, right? There's your W-2. You're not making a paycheck. You're not making any money until you close a house. And like Mark said, I could hand you a ready, able, and willing buyer today, but the chances of them closing is probably 3 to 6 months away, right? By the time you look at a house and negotiate and get under contract and close with the mortgage, it takes time. So, finding people to do transactions with is difficult. How do I even do that if I'm not on a team? It's definitely a hard career to get into if you don't know where to go or look,
Oh yeah. Well, it goes back to like when you were 20 and some random guy, the real estate Yoda comes up to you, right?
He does say that every time in the interview. It's awesome.
No, it's awesome though. Like he comes up and gives this to you and then he disappears. How many times has he probably said that? You said he probably doesn't even know how much it impacted you, but like he's probably said it so many times in like, you're the 1 in the 100 that, that it impacted, or really, because like, so like, what does that, that says so much about you. And like another thing, kind of going back just a little bit of it, switch the topic, you were talking about like being yourself and kind of like, everybody's like got something that they're kind of running from. And then you talked about getting into real estate at 20. Like, how do you break into that world at 20 years old?
So I was graduated from Milford High School and then went to Central Michigan. And it was honestly just a forced, I needed to get an internship, right? So that was it. And it's like, real estate always interests me for the business plan we had to make in business college. I did a rental portfolio, right? So, okay, if I bought this many rentals, what was the cash flow? What was the cost? All that type of thing. So I actually got into real estate strictly for investing. I was only interested in flips, rentals, that type of thing. But it's like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I better learn how to do some transactions, right? I better learn how to buy a house or sell a house and do that kind of thing. So found a realtor. They had a small team at the time. I liked his niche he was working for, or like targeting. And it was really, I met him somewhere and he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe an internship. I called that guy 3 times a week for a month. And he said after the end of the month, he's like, I know you'll be good at this because you blew me up. And it's like, yeah, man, I wanted it. I really did, and thankful I did it. This is the only job I've ever had.
That's amazing.
30 now. Yeah, it's the only job. It's the only thing I know. That and chasing deer in the woods. Not even that good at that. So
so this is you're kind of quitting the day job there. So you did you keep going to school as you're going through this?
Yeah. So I was driving home from Central Michigan, Ann Arbor, to show houses on the weekend. And I'm stepping out of class, talking to clients. It was awesome though. It's what you put into it, and that was always very much like the kind of like hustled my way through stuff, right? Like flipping cars on Craigslist in high school and doing that, just doing anything to not have a normal job. I washed dishes at 12. I worked cleaning a butcher shop at 16. Like I understood what work was, and I like working on the phone a lot more.
What was that drive? Like, how did you get that drive to, where you're cleaning dishes at 12 and you're kind of going through that?
Probably just my environment, parents for sure, always pushing and encouraging. friends, families. Like I wasn't the only 12-year-old with a job, 13-year-old with a job. You know, a lot of my buddies' parents were on them for it. So probably just, I mean, and you got things you want to go buy. So you got to get some money as a little kid, but I'm not sure. Still don't know.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I had to go back to that because, again, how many people has that guy told that story to you, and then, you know, does it stick or does it go with anybody else? You're using it as your strategy every day.
Yeah.
Right. And it was free.
Build the largest team in Livingston
I hope
County.
that guy listens to this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I hope so, man. I really owe him a lot, but you know, I think it was easily digestible, right? I could give you the greatest concept on earth, but if it's super confusing, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Right. Like that was something like, okay, 10 real estate conversations a day. And my follow-up question was, to who? About what? He goes, it doesn't matter. Anyone about real estate. And it's like, all right, that's nondescript enough for me to take it and run, you know? And what's hard about real estate, I mean, there's all these personality types of people, and this is a great business for people that can't shut it off, right? Like we're going to bed thinking about it, we're waking up thinking about it, and you get rewarded for that. But it can also drive you crazy, right? It can wreck your family life. It can wreck your friend's life. It can do a lot of things. So that 10 a day for me was awesome to be able to turn it off. Let me run to 10.
Yes.
And let me live my life. So that was, you know, I got a little bit better at golf. You know, my friends a lot. But, you know, real estate, if you work hard for 3 hours a day, you're done. I mean, really. Now, that was one thing I recognized too. It's like you go in a lot of sales offices, right? It's like there's a lot of people in here, but what's everyone doing? You know, I used to avoid in that office the water cooler.
Yeah.
You had to talk to 10 people. And it's like, what are we all doing talking when we should be doing? It's other stuff, right?
You're talking to the wrong 10 people at the water cooler.
Yeah. You guys need realtors?
They already know a realtor.
Yeah. So, I mean, and, you know, those people you would see chit-chatting all the time, when you see the production, why are all my office friends not up on production? And it's like the producers are locked in their office. The producers are on appointments.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, there's a disconnect, you know?
I think and that's the biggest reason why I dragged my feet getting into real estate. So my wife, Kristen, has always been in the mortgage world. She owns her own mortgage company. I've been around it for 18 years.
Yeah.
She's worked out of the house primarily the entire time out of that time. And I was very familiar with the terminology, the lingo of how the process worked. And we had talked about it for years about me getting into real estate. In fact, I started doing my pre-licensing class and then held off for 2.5 years and then found out that the money I spent on the class goes away after 3 years. I was like, oh boy, I might as well get this. But I dragged my feet because I assumed that that you only work nights and weekends as real estate agents. And, you know, when I first got in, you know, somebody that I listened to told me that you run your business the way that you want to run your business. It was very early, and it was within the first month of me having my license. And you don't show up to the doctor's office expecting to see the doctor at 8:00 at night and be upset that he's not there and ready to be able to see you, right? You're the profession, and not saying that I won't. I have a family. I have 4 boys, and you know, the goal is not to miss their things, and I never will, right? I will always schedule things around their activities and be there and go on vacations and do those things with them. But, and I have to be very aware of my calendar and what's coming up. You know, every week at the beginning of the week, I put all my personal stuff in my calendar, and then I'll fill it with work stuff, right? So that way I'm available for my family and at all the events that I need to be at. And so I think if you're hung up on, all I'm gonna do is work nights and weekends in real estate, it doesn't have to be. And then I'm not saying that I never work on nights and weekends. I do, but it's on nights and weekends that I don't have anything going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can count on, you know, a couple hands how many weekends or how many Sundays I've worked the last year, right? Because, and usually when a client's like, hey, I really want to see this house on Sunday. I know it's your family day. And I'm like, you know, but I really want to see it. The chances of them wanting that house, I know, are very significantly high, right? Because they know that this is family time for me. So I think it's, you know, you run your business the way that you want to run your business. You pick up the phone at 11:00 at night, guess what? They're going to be calling you and texting you at 11:00 at night from there on out.
You train your clients.
You do.
Absolutely.
You do.
I remember as a young salesman, like, you know, driving yourself crazy, like, because you're trying to respond to everything. And it's like, again, I would work on Sundays specifically in my job, and then I'd tell my clients I work on Sundays, and I would have in a 5-hour day, I'd be the number one salesperson in our company every single time because my clients were trained to come on Sundays. So I'd be nothing but sales on Sundays when everybody else is sitting there.
Wow.
You train them, right? And then it was residual. It happened every Sunday.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's just something Jason has. I don't know how to do that, right? It's...
Luckily, I was the leader developing people, so I taught them how to do it too. Because it's like, again, and that's how I ended up having the number one store in the whole entire Midwest, is because everybody was doing that, right? It's like you're training people. This is when I'm here. You're not like, how many salespeople complain, my day off was Wednesday and they came in and now I lost the sale, like in car sales or something, right? Train your clients. If you have every Wednesday off, let them know I'm not going to be in on Wednesday. Let's do it on Thursday. Let's do it on Tuesday. Now you have a closing tactic to be like, come in on Tuesday. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think especially like the younger generation, we were always told we're special, right? We get all the ribbons and it's, I'm so unique. And we had this great conversation, so they'll never forget me. And do your clients really owe you anything? Right. I mean, they don't,
no.
And that's they never called me back. It's like, well, if you have something to help them with, you better get a hold of them. And that was the biggest thing too. It's like, they owe you nothing. You got to take care of them, do the right job, and it'll all work out. It's once again, stop worrying about yourself, because that's what it is.
That's what it is. Yep. Yep.
But back to, just to touch up on Jim's conversation, we're 1099 employees, not W-2s.
Oh,
just when a new realtor gets their tax bill, we're 1099.
There you go. Yeah, we are 1099.
I was thinking that at some other point. I missed that one.
What came out of my mouth and what I was thinking were apparently two different things.
It's amazing how that happens.
It's amazing.
It does.
So Jim, what's your story? What's leading up to real estate? Like, how did you get into sales? That whole entire thing.
So, my wife was very young. We were parents very young, 22 years old. And Kristen was really close to graduating college at that point, ended up getting a great job, excelled at it really quickly, a local mortgage company. And it afforded me the opportunity to be a stay-at-home dad. And that truly is A, the hardest job on the planet, and B, the most rewarding job on the planet. And we had two young boys when I was 22, 23 years old. And I got to stay home with them, raise them. I finished up my college degree, got my bachelor's degree. And once when they got to school age and they started getting into school, I was like, man, what am I going to do? Because I was, Kristen was crushing it and I got to stay home. I decided to become a high school football coach and a substitute teacher. And that's kind of what I did for 10 years is I taught high school substitute teaching and did high school football, coached for a number of years. And then once when our oldest kind of got to the age that he was getting into the youth program, I started coaching there. And that I found my passion there. I found my passion in coaching, teaching, leading, and that was just that was my passion. So then when I knew when I got into real estate or when I was thinking about real estate, because again, job market kind of changed, Kristen's job changed. And, at that point I was kind of looking for work. And I landed on real estate just because we were like, hey, real estate naturally I can send stuff to Kristen and vice versa, it'd be a good, kind of a good career choice. And that's kind of how I got into it. And with the mindset of owning and starting my own team within a couple of years, within 3 years is kind of my plan. Now we ended up doing that. I think I was a year and a half in the business, just kind of met Mark and it just kind of worked. And, it happened sooner, but that's kind of where the background in a quicker, way, kind of happened. So,
well, it's so cool because you found that passion and that purpose. And then you went to work and you created it.
Yeah, you're never too late to get into something or start a career, And I think I always struggle. I always was like, I'm going to be a teacher. I love being around kids, and I love being influential. I love I'm still in that role, right? I'm still I'm still in an influential coach, teacher, mentor role where I'm at, but and that's the reward. That's what I enjoy the most, right? I mean, I would so much rather see one of our agents have success than myself having a closing.
Yeah.
Truly. I would rather, in fact, Mark and I, when we first started the team back in 2020, March of 2020, literally it was like, hey, let's start a team. Sat down, joined a brokerage, and all of a sudden COVID happened. It was like, all right, well, what do we do? We can't, literally the real estate market was shut down. You couldn't even show houses. You couldn't even do anything. So, we were like, all right, what are we going to do? How are we going to build this thing? But that's when we started the company. And, I was, we were running and our first year in 2020, Mark and I did 95% of the company's business. It was just Mark and I, and we had like one other agent and an admin at that time. We were just worrying about growing and doing our, funding the team. But then the next year, I think we did 65% of the team's business last year. And then this year, I think we're doing about 25-30% of the team's business, which every year we scaled back. And the reason is we're building the business. Our agents are the ones that are out making the money and doing the things, because I would rather have a business and create a world big enough for them to be in rather than running out and doing it on my own. It's more rewarding me seeing the agents do the things than it is for me to actually do the things, if that makes sense.
You're empowering them.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm doing what I'm passionate about, coaching and teaching and, motivating. That's my passion.
Like you said, then you get to see them and they get to, like, you when you ask them, like, what's your growth been? That's your measurement.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding. I mean, we got agents that have had the best year. They're coming off the best year they've ever had. And like, the real estate in general is down, right? Countrywide this past year, less houses sold this year than the previous couple of years with COVID. Most teams have struggled. Most agents' numbers have gone down. We've far succeeded what we've done in 2021. Our agents have far succeeded what they did in 2021. And the growth and trajectory is huge. And that's not by accident, where most companies are, I think most real estate's down 7.5% or something like that I saw, right? We've grown this year, which is a testament of, what we've been able to build, and the agents pouring in and, believe in us and believing in the philosophy and putting in the work. So it's awesome.
That's so awesome. So you guys, it's so awesome. You guys literally had one employee in 2020 and now you're at 20 and you're just
still going.
That's amazing growth.
Yeah. And it actually happened a lot quicker than, we've even this last year.
I was going to say, did you expect that growth?
No, I don't.
I can't tell you what we expected.
It was mostly on social media. So like, in my first year, I didn't even know it with the last brokerage I was at. I went in at the end of the year. I can't remember what I was going in there for. And the sales manager at the time was just like, man, you had one of the best years ever as a first year real estate agent. And I was like, really? And I didn't even know. I had no clue. They're like, literally, it's the second most closings of any agent that we've had that I know of. And I was like, wow. Really? Well, that's pretty awesome, and it was, it was kind of cool to be able to hear. And I can't even remember where I was going with this story, but there was, tying it back to, gosh, what was I?
You want me to save you?
Yep. Save you. Yeah, please.
Partnerships at their best.
Yeah.
So this is why it's awesome having a business partner, and one of our favorite agents coined us the Yogi and Boo Boo of real estate, because we are right there, man. But, when Jim was at that point, right, basically the best rookie year of a team or agent, and he got not even a shout out from the leader, right? He didn't even know about it. And it's like, it kind of doesn't make you feel great, right?
No, it did not.
It's kind of opens your eyes, right? And, when we were at that point of making a change or whatever, I remember thinking, I mentioned before, right? I was about to get out or scale, right? But the thing I really started looking at was like, okay, I know I need support for my business. I started looking for teams and companies and what do they offer, and no one really offered what I needed or what I wanted, right? So then Jim had the component, I didn't, and I was like, let's go. I know the things that I wish I had as an agent that's producing. Doesn't seem like I can find it. Let's build that thing. So it is nice when you can recognize, like, if I can satisfy a need that I had and I truly believe I needed, why wouldn't this work at scale?
Dots connected. I remember where I was going with this. So I was using, right, that success I was having and sharing it all over Facebook and all over social media. And it wasn't long after that, once when we announced that we were starting a team, that I had a few people that I had met through the years reaching out to me saying, hey, Jim, I want to do what you're doing. I want to join in that success. And so, early on, Mark and I were like, well, we don't really know what we're doing, but come along for the ride. And a lot of those people are still a part of our team. The majority of them are. And they were the originals, and it just, they got into it. I think we have 4 teachers on our team. A lot of them, because me substitute teaching for 10 years where I was at, 4 of them ended up looking for some extra work during the summer. So you're plugged into the community as a teacher, and you are trusted as a teacher. Yeah. We find that teachers are wildly successful in real estate. And so, some of them plugged in and have made a lot of money in real estate in a short amount of time doing it. And so that kind of was the story early on, was a couple people, hooked on our coattails. In fact, one of them, I remember going over his house to list his house. And before I think his house was even under contract, he was on our team. It was pretty funny. I was like,
did he list it himself? Or no?
No, I listed it. Yeah, we listed it. It was like, he wrote me a check and he was sitting right next to me learning. But at the time it was like, all right, let's go, and we just kind of were grabbing people, but all these people were like-minded, right? All these people were people that I knew that were competitive in sports. A lot of them are coaches. And that kind of started our first initial and what things worked and what things didn't work. And then from there, it just kind of grew. And, it was a strategy of ours to grow and scale really quickly so then we could, compete with the other top teams in the office. And we started saying, well, we're the biggest team in the office. Or we're one of the largest teams in the office. And that gives validation. We didn't say best or top at that time. We said largest, right? And the reason why is we were competing against other really good established teams that have been around for years. And once we were able to start kind of winning those battles, because, Mark and I have pretty good magnetic personalities, we got really good about our spiel after hundreds of them. But yeah, we just kind of perfected it, and now it's kind of a beast unto itself. Now we're a lot more picky and choosy and kind of going from there. But that's how it kind of built initially.
Well, and what a lot of those agents and bodies at the beginning helped us do was find bottlenecks quickly. So it's like, okay, how can we process 20 files a month the first 6 months of a business being open?
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, we got to stress test this. How can we do onboarding and offboarding at scale? So those are a lot of things. It's like, we could inch by and go one more agent. 3 months goes by, one more agent. Okay, now I'm finally ready for 6, right? It's like, let's take 10, see where all of our flaws are, pull our hair out a little bit, but then come out of it so much better.
Yeah.
So I think it was that rapid change. And so, as you're saying that, like, I was kind of reminiscing a little bit. So thankful for those guys that joined us and put their faith in us at the beginning, right? Our value proposition was, I hope you like us.
We're swell people.
His logo's hot off the press, and let's get going. But it was them putting their faith in us, and they have seen so many renditions of so many different processes, right? Like our agent accountability process. How many times does that change?
Oh my gosh!
Every time. I think they're finally used to change. So if we don't change something after a while, like, what's going on? They're used to the change. But, every time, whether, we'll mess things up when we change it. That's just the nature of it. But your ability to recognize it and pivot quickly is a world of difference, right? To not have the ego of being like, this should work. Why isn't it working? We're going to just pound this path until we crumble. It's really
one of our biggest keys to success, I think. And we meet with our agents weekly. Every single week, and we check in. So we hear like, hey, we don't like this, or we don't like that, or change this, or change that. And like having a beat on your business is key. Like understanding your business. Mark, you're absolutely right. It was just like, and that's been consistent. We meet at the same time with everybody every single week. It doesn't change. If you have a meeting at 11:15, it's 15 minutes at 11:15 every Monday. And
but even that, it's we knew the value of doing it, but we had no idea how to do it or why to do it or anything. But we were just told, like real estate Yoda style, like, this is important for a business to be successful. So we just started doing them. We know what we're doing. We're talking about the weekend and stuff. But as time goes on and we understand like what's really important for their success, it tweaked.
And as things start happening, right? Yeah. As you're selling, as you're going through those processes, as they have a frustration or something, you learn from that as things start happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have such a big market sample now because we have all these different personality types and all these different problems and all these, it really has changed how we're able to coach and help now, even relative to the first year.
It's crazy. Like if you're an agent that's coming on the team now versus like some of our original people, the difference of like what tools and systems and processes and our coaching, it's completely changed. And I think, that goes back to Mark and I's, we're eager to learn. And I think everything that we have is something that we've taken or stolen, rip off and duplicated, right? It's, hey, here's somebody that's doing it so much better than what we're doing and learning from the mistakes that they did. Let's implement that into our business. And that's kind of the collection of what we've done. Mark and I go out and we're meeting with other teams and other leaders that are where we want to be in 5 years or 3 years or 1 year. And, when we go out there, we've been to groups where it's like, holy smokes, they're unbelievable. They're, I want to take everything that they have and we're going to do it. And we've also got teams where it's like, ooh, I don't like any of the stuff that they do, but that's equally as good. That's equally as important. I'm like, I know what not to do there, or I know what we want to do here. And I think that's, our coach and our mentor and like learning and implementing and stuff like that. And like, we're not afraid to we've spent months on stuff, and then within a matter of weeks, we've been like, well, that didn't work very well. And we've torn it down and rebuilt it, and I think that's, it always keeps our agents on their toes. I mean, we're pretty regimented with things, but, tomorrow's our team event. Going to the Red Wings game. We're taking everybody to the Red Wings game. So that will be a good time. Awesome. And, everybody's significant other will be coming down with us. So I think there's 30 of us heading down to Detroit. So look out, and it'll be a good time for sure. So yeah, again, going back to culture, we do it 4 times a year. We take everybody out and do some sort of event just to try to continue to build that team camaraderie and that.
Well, you could see it. And again, I was able to come in and speak back at the beginning of November. God, time flies.
Yeah.
I'm like, where are we at right now? It's mid-December. And just seeing like the cohesiveness, seeing like it's a team and you have 20 people. That's hard to do. That's hard to bring 20 people in and in being that kind of cohesive
food helps.
Family. Food helps, yeah. Food is necessary, especially if you keep them hostage in the office for...
It's way to my heart. Can't tell by looking at me, but...
The audio people won't get it.
You'll have to watch this not on Spotify.
At the beginning, it felt like wrangling cats. Right?
Yeah.
It totally was. But then you get the buy-in, and it isn't as challenging. They see the value in these things and they believe you, right? If you're pumped about something, they'll get pumped with you. If you're not liking something, they're going to read it, so they very much feed off your energy too as leaders. So like when you were coming in, we were pumped. We were pumping it up. And so they were ready. So
that's super awesome.
Yeah.
That's super awesome.
But just really quick to talk about, I was thinking, we were talking a little bit earlier about like the personality traits. You don't have the negatives towards it and things like that. We started during COVID. And of course, that could be a negative to anyone's business. But actually looking back on it, it was a huge positive to the time we started. We picked up a bunch of teachers looking to get out of that industry.
Ooh, yeah.
One of our top agents right now is a dental hygienist, right? Yep. You want to be in someone's mouth during COVID during that,
Yeah.
That was a unique opportunity that if I was looking at that moment, be like, probably shouldn't start a business right now. But
if you would have planned it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wrote that on paper as a good time to start. But
how many people started businesses during COVID? I've heard it so many times. There's been so many guests on my show that was like, I started this business in COVID, and now we're doing this, and we built a team of 20, and that's so awesome because you're right. If you could have predicted, if people would have never have picked it up and started it.
It probably was the right environment for those go mindset people.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone's telling you to stop.
Yep.
Everyone's telling you don't drive. Remember when they're sending out those papers, like you get a certification to be able to drive on the roads?
Oh my
the nurses are getting those?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I wouldn't be able to drive. That wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
Stop what you're doing. Stay at home. Don't do anything. And those go mindset people are like, okay, well, now it's just freed up time.
Yeah, I think, looking back on it, Mark absolutely nailed it. It also forced us to start building out a business plan, right? Like I spent my day, instead of like prospecting for new clients and going to show houses and going on appointments, I spent my day calling Mark and be like, hey, what about this crazy idea? Or what about this system? Or what about this process? And how do we build this out? And how do we do that? And how do we incentivize our admin? How do we, we started kind of structuring the team and starting conceptually putting it together where, I don't know if we had that slowdown time, if we ever would have found the time to really slow down.
Because you would have got caught in the whirlwind,
Yeah.
especially being top salespeople. You would have just went in and started selling.
That's the hardest thing I think about starting when you're doing, you have to get out of the business in order to work, rather than being in the business, you got to work on the business. And I think that forced us to be able to work on the business. And we were able to hit the ground running May 17th. I think is when the opening day was. I remember having to show house that day. But you hit the ground running. We were running from May. I mean, it was running for a while. And, but we had the foundations at least figured out. And we had the admin at that time. It was just like, we were just kind of throwing stuff at it. It was more task related. We're so much more regimented now. Like it's like, but back then it was like, hey, do this, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you send this out? Can you do this? It was just like, it was just chaos, but it worked at that time.
This guy like turning all around, like grabbing stuff from every end.
Well, I was usually the one that was like, do this. And Mark was just like, all right, grab me and we'll sit down and we'll work on this and build this process out. And I was just like, but it worked. And I think slowing down. I mean, we were able to really hit the ground running at that point with at least some sort of foundation, because, so many teams that we sit down with and we talk with, they're like, man, Jim, I don't have the time. And they're fully in the business.
Yes.
They're doing massive amounts. They're crushing it, but from a team standpoint, they don't know how to step back to be able to build their team the way that it desperately needs to be able to take it. It's like,
it's an ego hit.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so the year before we started our team, it was the best year I ever had. So sold 40 units, flipped a bunch of homes. Like I was doing good. And then it's like, okay, let's slow down. And that was, and I think our broker at the time told us that it was slowing down to speed up. Yeah. It's like very much have to pump the brakes. So like I cut my production in half. You pretty much did the same.
Yeah.
Then you look back on it, it's like, oh man, that was a lucky thing to do, because it, it works out in the long run. But, if you give yourself a year to be successful, what's the probability? If you give yourself 5 years to be successful, what's the probability? And it really, we're 3 years in. Is our third year?
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how this stuff compounds, and once you build out the systems of any business.
Yes.
Like, I mean, because we all have friends that run businesses, right? And operate businesses, and you talk to them and there's so many commonalities. It doesn't matter if it's real estate or cars or cell phones or, they're all so similar, and we all have the same problems.
Yes.
Right. It's typically leverage, and it's typically control, right? I mean, that's usually.
What's your highest dollar per hour activity, right? Like breaking that down, and like that's something that we do with our agents is like, hey, you've done 10 open houses and you haven't gotten anything from it. Maybe open house isn't for you, or hey, you've done 3 open houses and yet you've got a closing from it. When you doing your next 3?
Yeah.
Right. And it's not for everybody, and the internet leads to like the way that Mark built his business in real estate and the way that I built my business are completely two different models, right? Like Mark was young, like convincing friends and family to be able to work with him was hard to do at 20 years old. Right. Yeah. So he liked working with strangers, and got really good at it. Fantastic at over the phone and asking questions. That wasn't me. You get me in front of somebody, game on, let's go. I'm gonna buddy up. When I go on a listing presentation, it's like, where's the beer? We got chips and queso. Let's go. And it's funny, those two different dynamics, how they work and how we built their businesses, and everybody's unique. I would have never thought that I'd be doing vacant land and new construction, and and the way that I built my business, and maybe Mark had no idea how he was going to build his, and we don't know how how their business can be. But what we do is like, hey, let's try these different avenues. Let's try. Maybe you're the best door knocker there is. You don't know until you try it. That's a hard activity to do, or circle prospecting, or internet leads, or friends and families. But let's figure out which one's going to work for you, and let's pour into that, right? And that's our job. And then same thing with Mark and I. Like our dollar activity, our best dollar per hour activity probably isn't sitting down and writing out contracts and stuff like that, or helping our admin, or doing social media stuff, right? Our dollar per hour activity is pouring into our agents and training our agents and helping our agents and looking for like-minded agents that fit into our culture to help grow, right? That's our highest dollar per hour activity. And if we know that every day, we got to spend time with that.
So huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge figuring that out. So how, as you're getting in, you had this time obviously through COVID, but like, was it just kind of natural, your strengths and weaknesses combined, and like, did you have any kind of stumbling points, kind of merging your different personalities in, or?
you're going to bring up some hard stuff. No, I mean, we get along pretty well.
Yeah.
I cannot think of it. If we've ever had issues, we've talked about it always, you know, and I can't even think of.
It seems like you two just fell in sync.
I think that I think that I don't have like a crazy temper or personality. Like I do not like conflict, and I think Mark's the same way. So I think that we always try to have some sort of understanding. Do I always agree with everything? No.
Yeah.
And I think that's vice versa. But at the same time, through talking about it and trial and error, I mean, I trust Mark wholeheartedly with everything, right? Like I will defer to him on a lot of different things because of his real estate knowledge and whatnot. And then he'll defer to me with some things and give me leeway. And I think that's the only way for a really good partnership to work, is having that trust in somebody and allowing that leeway. You know, he knows his strengths and he knows his weakness, and I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. You know, at times, you know, I don't have, like, when an agent calls me and I don't know something, I'll be like, you know what, I'm not the best one to go. That's a Mark question for sure, you know? And I say that, I'm like, that's a Mark question. And they'll be like, okay, thanks, appreciate it, Jim. And they'll hang up and they'll give Mark a call, because, you know, again, some of that stuff, it's just like, if you want to figure out how to like talk with your friends and family about selling real estate and what I've done that I've had success with, I'm all for it. Let's have a conversation, right? I'm familiar in that territory, and Mark is too. But like, you know, that's my wheelhouse, is that kind of stuff where, you know, Mark will sit down with our agents and like break down their phone calls. You know, record your phone call. I'll sit and listen to it. And here's the questions that I would ask. And boo, boo, boo. I mean, that is gigantic to be able to do. And if you ever listen to Mark on the phone, he sits there and he's got his legs usually crossed. He's fully reclined in his chair, sitting there talking. And I'm just like, well, you set Mark can set an appointment today. He can be like, I'm going to go make an appointment. And I'm just like, gosh, how does he do that? But I mean,
that would have been a fun challenge for the podcast. We're going to pull out the phone book.
I have no doubt. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. And I think that mesh is why we can take on, like, some of our agents are really good with their sphere, right? Their friends and family and people that know, like, and trust them. And some other people, like, there's agents on our team that haven't done a single deal with their friends and family. It's all like internet leads and stuff like that. And what a resource. Like, most team leaders are like, hey, this is how I did my business.
Yeah.
You're going to learn how to do it my way. And it doesn't fit for everybody. Right.
And that's what I was thinking when you were saying that, is like, it's so awesome that you two came in having completely different styles, and you recognize that going back to the personality, it's fitting their personality, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. In sales, so many times you have a sales leader or manager, whatever, that's like, this is the way we do it. Yeah. Or you have a successful salesperson, so everybody tries to be that person in the company, and they try to do that person what that person can do. Like, it's that personality. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
And just because you have success doing showings doesn't mean the other person, the other person might knock on the door, to your point, really, really well. And that's so awesome that you two recognize that in, what's the word? Cultivate it.
Yeah.
And neither of us were born good at this, right? This is a learnable skill, 100%. I'm from a family of all engineers, not one salesperson, within aunts, uncles, cousins, nothing, right? So would I say I was naturally pushed into this? Not a chance. Now, I wish I had my first maybe 10 phone calls, right, in real estate, because I remember the first time I wouldn't stop. So nervous, right?
Yeah.
And it was older lady. She's like, honey, slow down. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank you for telling me to slow down. And it's just those little things. And it was just being stubborn enough to continue to fail, I guess, right? And it's like, okay, like, I have so many recorded phone calls of myself just so I can listen back to it. And like, okay, what didn't I ask? What should I have asked, right? And so that's on like a sales standpoint. But like, from a business partnership, I think the nice part is neither of us are super possessive about anything of the business, right? So if Jim wants to start working on this thing, have at it, right? Yeah. If you want to start working over here, have at it. You want to tweak this system, have at it, right? It's not like, hey, Jim, this is my lane.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The P&L is me. Right.
Yeah. And we've never done that. Like, we've talked about, like, well, maybe Mark, you oversee this portion of the business, and I oversee that. We're intermixing all the way through.
Yeah.
And, we even like to the point where our one-on-ones, like we rotate. So like, I'll have the first half, 1 week he'll have the second half that same week, and then we'll flip flop. And, because the way that I might be saying something isn't connecting, and the way that Mark says something to that same thing, he's able to connect with them. And I think that's really important. And same thing with like our admin staff, right? Like the way that I'm communicating with them and just not able to connect, or maybe connect as differently than the way that Mark's. So we've talked about it. We just never did it. And I think kudos to that, because I think that variety helps, and I think that early, some of the agents, it was funny. They call me and they'd ask me a question, then they get off the phone and they call Mark and ask him the same question, and we have two different answers. So it's like, well, Mark said this and Jim said that, but it's neither one of them are wrong, right? It's just a different take on situations, because I'm not going to, you get really good at like, if I don't know the answer, that's okay. Right? If I have a client that's like, hey, Jim, you know what? That's a great question. I'm not sure. I'm going to find out for you, and I'm going to give you the correct answer. Yes. Or I'm not the right person to answer that. You'll want to check with this person, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I'm not going to lie or fake it just to sound good. And it's the same thing when one of our agents call me to ask me a question. Like, you know what? That's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'll either find out, or better yet, I'd check with Mark first to see. And, I think having that trust and having that partnership is what it's all about.
It's absolutely huge. I can see just it would. People listening. If you want to be part of a team, this is an incredible culture to be a part of, and you can see just everything you guys are talking about, like fostering and developing and being able to see that growth. Sales is awesome because you don't just grow from a professional standpoint in sales. You have to grow personally as well, because to your point, it's about listening, right? To be successful, you talked about at the beginning, you were just talking. Along the way, you start asking more questions and sitting back and listening. And that's why that call is much more comfortable. So you can sit, where's the stress? When I go into coaching sessions, I have no stress. I used to, because I put it all on me. I'd be like, I've got to have the answer. I've got to be the magic. They're paying me. I've got to have like all this infinite wisdom. And those would be the worst sessions when I tried to jam something. I tried to plan it. I tried to put my agenda on it. When I came just like ready to listen and ask questions, and like those are the best. Yeah. Right.
That's exactly what real estate is.
Yeah.
It's, I think about that all the time. Like these certain appointments, man, would I be nervous? I'd be sweating through a shirt, driving to a listing appointment or my first showings or whatever it is. And then you look back, you're not even thinking about it anymore, right? You're jamming out in the car, you're doing whatever, and you show up and you do your thing.
Yeah.
And how much better were you in that appointment when you were loose? When you weren't worried about it, when I wasn't adding up the commission before I drive to this $1 million house. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd make, that's 4 new tires. That's the brakes for my car. Man, I'm doing good, right?
And that's the absolute worst for you salespeople. Because we've all done that. And it's like when you get told no, you've already bought that stuff in your head.
Yeah.
So like your reaction to the person in front of you is not good.
I stole this from Mark. Mark used to say it all the time. Don't bet or don't anticipate that commission check until it hits your bank account. Yeah. Right. In real estate, we've all seen it now. I've seen it where you're at the table, at the closing table, and it blows up. It could be that late in the ball game. You're like, oh, so it's, until it hits your bank account, it's not over. And so it's a rewarding career. It really is. And I think, in real estate, there's 85% failure rate in year one for real estate agents. And of those 15% that make it to year two, I've heard is 85% failure rate of those in year two. It's not an easy career to be able to get into. And I think largely because the brokerage that you join matters, first and foremost. And then from that, so your success, depending on what brokerage you join, matters. And then from there, what team you join, or if you go solo, matters. The brokerage is going to have some resources for you, but truly, if you're on your own, it's so much to know. You have to plug in. You have to find a mentor that's going to take you under the wing and show you kind of and guide you the way. Yeah. And it's invaluable. Your clients will feel it. They really will. The difference between somebody that's knowledgeable, that kind of knows what they're talking about in real estate, and one that doesn't, it's night and day. It really is.
Well, it's huge. And you said something before we started recording of like, you probably would make it, or maybe you said it, like you'd probably made it, but it would have been a lot longer. Like you can make it. It just takes a lot more time. You started when you were 20, you made it, but how long did it take you to get to this point? How long? It was a lot of growth period. What if you had And Jim, when you were 20, how much further?
We talk about that all the time.
You know, like, because that's the problem, not just in real estate, but in any organization. There's no development. And it's going back to like even the one-on-ones and having the conversations and having that transparency of like what's going on. There are people that don't want to know what's going on. They're afraid to know what's going on. They don't want to go talk to the sales team because they are afraid to know what's going on. And you have to get on top of that.
Yeah.
Or if we develop you too far, you got to leave us. If you get too big for us, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, a lot of Jim and I, we need to run at a speed to get our world big enough to fit everyone in it.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
We're going fast.
If an agent leaves us, it's it's Mark and I's fault because we didn't make the world big enough to be able to keep them, right? And so but we always do goal setting. We always talk about like with our agents, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? Maybe some of them want to own their own team. Maybe some of them want to, continue to do what they're doing and they're content with it. Maybe they want to have their own team. Whatever it is, our goal is to understand their situation so that way we can figure out solutions for that to be able to make, having them a part of our team is got to be a win-win. Yeah. It really does. It's not like, and we're not looking to make $1 million off of just one person, right? This only works off of scale. And we talk about all the time, it's concessions, right? Being able to own different companies and stuff like that, like mortgage, title, and insurance and stuff like that, which is all stuff that Mark and I are working on. But more than that for the agents, it's like, hey, what number is going to work for them? What number is going to work for us? Because you get enough like-minded people, they're going to help us grow, and then we're able to recruit and make it a win-win for them. And that's the goal every time that we're meeting with agents.
It's huge. And just kind of we're wrapping up here. You said something earlier about imagine, from the beginning, imagine what they get now, as far as from the training, understand having your systems in place, learning through the learning lessons, but also just from the point of you guys did 95% of your sales to now you're doing 25% and they're getting all that time back. So not just have you developed the systems, but now you have that time opened up to pour into them versus in that first year of the bless everybody's heart that was there and like learned. They probably learned and grew so much as well. And they're so adaptable that, being used to like change is going to happen, be ready for it. Like
you're so right with that. I mean, I remember taking appointments or talking to our agents while I was in between showings, like, our new agents. And now it's like Mark and I are in the office every day from 9 to 3. And so we're there with our agents. They have access to us to ask us any question. Monday through Friday, typically we're there. And that's huge to be able to have that resource is a resource that I certainly didn't have. Both teams that I was at, my team leader was not there. The door was closed. I wasn't able to have, in fact, I don't even know if I had a cell phone number of one of the team leaders, right? It was just like, holy smokes, what do I call? What do I do? Yeah, So, I think that's one of the biggest levels of success is our availability for our agents, so that way they can pick our brains. So, in real estate, no situation. I guess they say you don't really become efficient in real estate until after 100 transactions. Like it's 36 is like, hey, you kind of know what you're doing, but then 100, and the average real estate agent does 7 deals, 8 deals a year. So, if at scale, they're talking about
your whole life.
Yeah, you're talking.
You die still not a master of the real estate deal.
Yeah. So, I can't tell. It's amazing if you really knew how many deals most of these real estate agents are doing, right? Like, well, I've been in real estate for 20 years. Awesome. Congratulations. That's fantastic. How many transactions have you done in the last couple of years, right? That's really what matters because the market changes so fast. We're in a completely different market than what we were in last year.
Yeah.
It's changed so much. Even in spring of this year, the market's completely changed. And so if you don't have a real estate agent that's fully in the business and fully understanding, it makes a massive difference and saves you time and money and hassle and energy and stress. It's crazy. So,
and 4 months from now, that's going to be a lot different too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like those busy realtors have such a good barometer. The one every couple, it's hard to know what's exactly going on today. We do 2 different things, right? Being a realtor and running a business is 2 different things. So it's challenging for us because I enjoy selling. I enjoy flipping homes and helping people find rentals and do all that thing. But does that help me personally? Or does my time better spent for the collective, right?
Yeah.
So, Jim and I still actively sell, and we enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. There's so many rewarding things. You get them under, in that house that they've always wanted, right? Or you help them sell this property they've had a challenge selling.
Yeah.
That stuff is really rewarding.
Plus, you're staying relevant for your team too. You're still
Absolutely.
selling and
got to still have the chops. Yeah, it's hard to coach people when you haven't been to a listing appointment in 6 months.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
This is what the book says to do.
Yeah, that's so true. We're not doing as much as what we've done, but still enough to be able to be in it and go on and help our agents through that process. And I don't know if that'll ever go away. We'll always have some component of selling real estate. But I mean, we're first and foremost, we're business owners running the business, helping our agents be able to be front and center. And I think, if you're able to keep them happy and show them that they're able to reach their goals and their aspirations, that's what it's all about. And I think in the end, when you look back at it, that's the platform of being a success. I think that's what defines a successful business, is when your employees are reaching their goals and their aspirations, both financially and personally, is everything. And we do goal setting, and we tend to focus first and foremost on the personal goal setting, and then fill in the professional, right? I want it the whole you. And we talk about that. We have one of our agents on our team that's like, hey, I'm struggling with a little bit of this, and I need you to check up on me every once in a while, right? So like in our one-on-one, that's a question I'm asking. It's like, hey, how you doing with that? And he's like, I'm doing really well. It's, we're helping them, because if I can help them personally, it's going to trickle into their professional, right? And so connecting with them and understanding at that level, we're family. I mean, we know every single one of their significant others and their kids and all that stuff, and we bring them in. And I mean, it's truly a family, and it goes back to that culture, right? And that's when you care of somebody that deeply and care about their success and their family's success that much, I think there's a gigantic reward, which is what we're all about.
Is there any other way to do business, to Mark's point at the beginning, right? Seriously, you guys rock so much. It's like I was trying to compare, like I was going to say like the Beatles, but there's 4 of them. So it's like Outkast. You guys are like Outkast. Like this interview could go on forever. If I didn't have an appointment in 3 minutes, I would still be talking. Because such an awesome interview, guys. Thank you so much for coming down and dropping.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man. It was awesome. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.